welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing for Tuesday, March 11th. New chairman, Luke Farron, joined by Linda Munn, Thomas Kempner, Carol Zacharias, Brian Stoller, attorney. We've got Joyce Jifra joining us via Zoom, and Alex Wallach, village planner. We're going to start with some votes on written decisions. We'll start with case 3179, that was 20 Hillcrest Avenue. The written decision is favorable to the application. Do you actually have them printed out, Alex?
I believe Brian has them. Mm-hmm.
Pass them on down if you don't mind.
There may just be one copy of each.
Yeah.
Share.
Okay. Well, there, I'm just going to record votes on them. You don't need it. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't
So,
understand.
everybody's familiar with this decision. This was the swimming pool and the garage. The decision is written favorably to the applicant. It will grant the variance requested. So an aye vote is to affirm that, and a nay vote is to vote against the variances. Okay, so Joyce, how do you vote?
I think we need a motion.
I motion to.
Approve the decision as written.
Okay, well, we don't know how everyone's going to vote yet.
No,
It's a motion.
But
Okay.
we need the motion, second the motion, then there can be the discussion.
Okay, so I will motion to vote on this.
I
decision.
second.
Second, all in
Yep.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Aye.
Brian.
Are you voting, you just, by
You just
saying
vote.
aye, you just voted? Is that-
No, I would just vote,
No.
said aye to second the
Yeah,
motion.
No, so it should just be, and I think we misunderstood, you have the motion by the chair, seconded by Ms. Munn. Now, if you want to discuss it before you take any action on it, now's the time.
It's a very unprofessional start to the evening for me. Apologize.
We're with you.
Okay, Joyce, how do you vote?
Yay.
Okay. Carol?
Yay.
Okay.
Yay.
Linda?
Yay.
Okay. So I'm the lone nay on this, but that's okay. So, do we need to close this?
You're
Vote
done.
4-1?
You
Okay.
did exactly what you needed to do.
Okay. All right, closes that. We'll move to 3185, 199 Halsey Neck Lane. Motion to vote on this case.
Okay, I'm recused on this one.
Okay.
Do I have to leave, Brian? or-
No, no.
Okay,
Seconded.
just don't.
Okay, get everyone familiar, this was the garage toward the property line. Thomas, you are recused.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Linda?
Nay.
Nay. Carol?
Nay.
Joyce?
Nay.
Nay. I too am a nay on this. Just so we're clear, this will constitute a denial of the variance request. Okay.
So, what you just did was you voted to deny. I would recommend that the vote was to approve the decision. So you have a vote of 5-0 against approving the decision.
4-0.
I'm sorry, 4-0.
Yeah.
What you now need to do is either formally deny it or recommend that council draft a decision denying the motion, denying the application, and you can vote on that at our next meeting.
A vote to formally deny it. We'll close it out right now.
It will, but you're going to need to adopt findings.
Okay, so then the better route is to ask you to draft a denial of the decision.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We'll now go to 3189, 99 Sanford Place. This decision is written to approve the variance request. A motion to vote on the decision?
Second.
Okay. Joyce, back to you.
Yay.
Okay. Carol,
Yay.
Thomas,
Yay.
Linda,
Yay.
yay. I also am an aye. Okay. Moving on.
And Sage, I believe we should have a Lisa Rickmers on Zoom for the next two cases. We can promote her to panelist if she's on. Great.
Okay, we'll open case 3190. That is 484 First Neck Lane.
Bailey Larkin with Bennett and Reed, offices at 212 Windmill Lane in Southampton, on behalf of the applicant. Jim Walker from InterScience Research Associates had previously presented this application on January 14th. In response to comments raised by the board, Mr. Walker had submitted several packages of information for the board's consideration. At the request of the village's consultant and the board, verification of the wetlands line was conducted. We received confirmation in February that the wetlands line depicted on the survey we had filed with the board originally was verified. So by correspondence dated for February 14th, we filed an updated survey with you confirming and noting the verification of that wetlands line. Mr. Walker also filed correspondence in January, including copies of the DEC's determination of non-jurisdiction, copies of the correspondence from the Department of State, and from the Army Corps of Engineers. He also filed a construction protocol for the dock, which was specifically requested at the last meeting, and copies of all prior wetlands permits, including a copy of the buffer planting plan that was approved in 2006. He had represented at the meeting in January that this buffer is largely intact. It's in very good condition. And he included not only a copy of the decision, but the planting plan, so you have that for your record as well. He also filed in February, on February 6th actually, a plan showing proposed mitigation for the establishment of a dock on this property. And what the applicant is proposing to do is to increase the size of the buffer. He did propose to reestablish some of the vegetation along the southern property line that was approved in the 2006 planting plan, and then additionally increase vegetation along that southern property line for an additional approximately 200 square feet to kind of offset the establishment of the proposed dock on Lake
I'm sorry,
Agawam.
Bailey, if you spin that 180 degrees, they'll pick it up on the camera. So that way, the folks, and a little bit to your right. Oh, no, he's got it. Never mind.
Got it?
There we go. Sure.
The mitigation plan submitted by Mr. Walker was included a little bit of narrative on the project as well. He had proposed that this application would also seek to remove a few invasives that are located within the buffers, specifically Tree of Heaven or Bronx Palm, that are located along the shoreline, and in fact some of the trees have actually fallen. They would be removed manually so that we don't disturb the existing buffer on the property. It was requested that we provide additional information about the clearing that's necessary. The narrative that he submitted for construction methodology includes a statement that any construction activity would be limited to the pathway that leads to the dock and clearing of approximately 2 feet on either side of the dock. The existing vegetation doesn't need to be removed to actually construct the dock, and because it'll just be cut back, because it's flow-through decking with light transmission qualities that allow for the native vegetation to regrow underneath the dock once it's constructed. On February 19th, we had filed the engineered plans for the proposed dock. And Jim had explained at the last meeting that we have an application before the town trustees. The town trustees had initially signed off on the design of the dock. In order to get an actual trustees permit, we needed to have those engineered plans prepared. So they were prepared, and on March 3rd, he had attended a work session with the town trustees. They've signed off on the engineered plans, and we should be getting a trustee's permit as soon as I get an invoice. We actually have to pay them their permit fee in order to get that. So I have not included a copy of the trustee's permit because we are anticipating receiving it in the next couple of days, actually. I think that was all that was requested. Mr. Walker obviously is not here this evening, but if there are any questions, I can try and address them.
So Bailey, we spent some time at the last hearing talking about what's labeled on this latest planting plan or re-veg plan as the natural vegetation area. Sort of makes up the peninsula of the property, and we looked at some photos of it, and it was essentially just lawn.
I don't think that Jim's assessment of the property was the same as that assessment as well. He inspected this property and believes that the vegetation that's there is consistent with what was approved. It's not necessarily shrubs and trees, the buffer that was approved, but it is kind of a meadowscape. And it's consistent with what was approved in 2006 for this property.
I think as a board, we may have expected a more up-to-date planting plan. I mean, it was, we can pull it up on Google Earth.
You know what's interesting? Across the street from this property is another property that has kind of a similar buffer that was approved by the board probably in 2005, no, a little later than that. It was, it's actually designed by Piet Holdorf, which I don't know if anyone has seen 5 Seasons. It was a documentary based on his work. It's 477 First Neck. It's a similar concept where there's grass walking paths that were approved through a kind of native meadow. And it was also something probably contemporaneously approved with this application, and it is kind of consistent with what the board had previously allowed on some of these properties, particularly when this application was approved. The improvements to the home required some wetlands relief, and that's why they established a buffer, but it wasn't an extensive wetlands permit application. It was small additions of 125 feet from wetlands where 150 is required. For the construction of a dock, this is a pretty extensive buffer for Lake Agawam, to be honest. And actually, it's more extensive than the trustee's guide for owners on Lake Agawam recommends, which is approximately 50-foot buffer. This area of the buffer is about 150 feet deep. So it's fairly extensive. It is native vegetation, with the exception of the invasives that we're trying to remove as part of this application. The construction of the dock is going to minimally affect anything. The offset is pretty in kind, the proposed expansion.
If I look at your drawing that you have there right now, there's a label in front of the home that says parcel B, right?
Oh, this parcel.
Yep.
Yep.
No, are we looking at the same drawing?
Parcel A.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah, look at
Yes.
look at the
Drawing.
patio of the home.
Okay.
Top drawing.
Yep.
Move your finger up, down, stop. Oh, right there. Parcel.
Okay.
See where it says parcel B?
Yep.
Okay. So I sort of think of that as the front yard of the house, right? And if we look at that, there's not actually that much of a wetlands buffer to the water.
I think the benefit of having a more substantial buffer versus the way they established this buffer was to create a more significant habitat along the water frontage here. Although this buffer is minimal here, the average of the buffer is going to be significantly more than the 50 feet that's recommended along Lake Agawam. It's a pretty significant buffer.
But do you have 50 feet in the cove?
I think it's a 25-foot offset here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 25 feet.
I recall that we had talked about feeling better about something that went all the way to the flood zone line. And I know that Mr. Walker made a big deal about the landscape architect who designed this. I get all that. We're just very underwhelmed by the quality of the wetlands buffer in relation to what we typically would see here. I mean, we looked at the photos and it's mowed. You know, it's not mowed as like a putting green or like a regular lawn, but it is mowed. And I don't know, maybe that grows out in the summer, but that's not what was presented to us.
Okay. Well, I can approach our client about potentially augmenting the buffer further if that's the board's direction.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let everyone else speak on this. For me, I would definitely prefer to see a planting plan that's consistent with what we would approve these days. And also, let's hit that 50 feet at least along all of the waterfront edge.
I agree with Luke, as a dock structure is going to change the waterfront, so there should be offsetting balances with better wetland stuff, which Luke just described way beyond my expertise.
Carol, what do you think?
I agree. It looks out of place. It looks like a mowed lawn. The neighboring properties have much more wetland buffer. It just doesn't add up. I would prefer the plantings you're referencing as well.
Linda?
Totally agree.
Well, let's go to our expert, Lisa.
Lisa, you're on mute. I
Sound
think.
muted.
All right, secondary mute. I have two mutes. Can you hear me now?
We can.
All right, great. So let me start first, just the additional doc information that we received, and I would say that that has been updated and is in good order now in terms of they're well on their way to getting that permit from the trustees, freeholders, and the dock itself is, I think they answered the questions about the area of disturbance, and I think it will be pretty minimal area disturbance to install the dock itself. The dock seems to be constructed in a method consistent with, an appropriate method for accessing the water and allowing, kayak access to Lake Agawam. The open slatting will allow drainage to go through it and allow plants and light to come through. So just in terms of their dock instructions that and the requests for additional information surrounding that, I want to just point out that I do feel like that is in good order, and their permitting is that they're in the right place as far as that is concerned. In regards to the buffer, I do. There are different types of wetlands vegetation that can exist of different standards and sizes. If you'd like to see a planting plan here that's more consistent with what is required across the village, then that could be a condition that we that could be a final, that if it would be helpful. I actually work really closely with an expert on wetlands vegetation who could work directly with the applicant, maybe to give them some guidance as to what the board would want to see, so we could move them towards that special wetlands permit for the next meeting.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. So Bailey, yeah, I think we all are in agreement that the dock as you proposed is fine. Given the condition of Lake Agawam, we need to improve every property along the lake. So please do confer with your client. 50 feet minimum at all waterfront, and then it would be ideal to see vegetation on the south end of the property all the way to the flood zone.
All right, I will speak with my client, and if we could potentially adjourn this then to the next meeting.
Yep, next meeting will be your last meeting on this. We'll close it after that.
Okay.
And if it's helpful to arrange for a conference call with H2M in the meantime, we're happy to coordinate that at the building department.
Okay.
Okay. Bailey, we don't love to have our recommendations totally ignored.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the next date?
What's that?
What's the next date?
In 2 weeks.
24th.
27th, I have? Let me just double check. I have it as Thursday the 27th.
Okay, good. So I will move to adjourn this case until the next hearing on the
Second.
27th. Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Joyce, I know you have to leave early tonight, so just give us a wave when you have to go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move to case 3195, which is 121 Lee Avenue.
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
How are you?
Great.
Cool.
Good to be back here. Just going to spread this out. If we need to,
You're just going to spin that 180 degrees so it faces you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Great.
And then if you sit, we'll be able to pick you up on the microphone.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is John Hamilton. I'm the landscape architect on behalf of the applicant. I'm with LaGuardia Design Group based in Watermill.
And this is a new case. I believe we have the affidavits in order.
All right, talk to us.
Floor is mine. Okay, great. So this project, I hope, is going to be a very straightforward application for you this evening. It's located at 121 Lee Avenue on the western portion of the village. The site is a smaller lot. You can tell by the site plan here. It's rather narrow. The house is positioned pretty close to the street. There's an existing pool. Everything that this application entails is within the wetland buffer. We're not proposing any work upland outside of this restoration project. In general, it's basically restoring native plantings to this buffer area. I think I really need to begin this with the existing conditions of the site. That's really the genesis of this project.
Okay.
The photos on this 1.1 sheet that you all have a copy of, I think really tell the story. There's some drone shots there that show the existence of the current buffer conditions. This lot actually does not go all the way down to the creek except a small portion to access the dock. The property actually stops short of the water. But most of the lot, probably half the lot, is actually within the 125-foot buffer line. So the existing conditions in this buffer area are severe, and they're in really terrible shape. There's almost no existing native plantings that are healthy or in good condition. There are a few native cherries that are being preserved. So any native shrubs, trees that are out there are limited, but they will be preserved in this project. The rest of the buffer, 95% of it is very invasive perennials, grasses, and shrubbery. We actually identified a whole list here for you, ranging from mile minuteweed, phragmites, we know we're out there, mugwort, Japanese stiltgrass, actually old remnants of privet that have spread throughout the buffer. So even Russian olive. The photos on the bottom of the sheet here really, tell the whole story. It's just completely choked out. The vines cover everything. There's down debris. It's in really terrible shape. So that's what's out there now. Moving to what we are proposing, I'll just flip this over. So the restoration plan here again is all seaward of the 125-foot buffer line. Starting from the landward side of the buffer, the pool fence will be obviously upland and not in the buffer area at all. We're going to line the top of the buffer area with woody shrubs, dense woody shrubs, starting at least 2 to 3 feet tall. They're going to grow, much taller than that eventually, but just so the board knows, there's no intent of having grasses or things that can be mowed right at the edge of the buffer. It's going to be lined with these dense woody plants along that upland edge to prevent any intent of that. The rest of the buffer itself, again, has probably over 250 of these woody shrubs that are going to go in at a 3-foot height, a pretty substantial size day one. We're also proposing a series of trees, 15 trees of a good size that are going to be spread throughout the buffer area here. And then, a couple thousand pieces of native grasses, along with potted perennials and native flowering plants as well. So the goal here is really to bring back this native area, a very sensitive portion of the site, a sensitive portion of the village, very close to the water, removing these invasive plants in a thoughtful way, setting this up for long-term success, temporary irrigation, doing what we can to do some level of maintenance to keep the invasives out via this maintenance access path. We've seen on past projects without the access path that some plants will get trampled, so I think it is a necessary part of this project to actually keep out the invasives that are so rampant on this site. That's the intent of the path in the center of the project here. But this is step one, this planting package, and it's a substantial investment that these owners are willing to put into this property in this buffer area. But it's step one. Step two is maintenance. There will be some maintenance to keep out invasives and these unwanted plants as a part of this. So while we think this is a great starting point, this will be a multi-year project.
Alex, is yearly check-in part of the base approval, or is that a condition that's typically added?
It's typically added as a condition of approval.
Okay.
The board has sometimes required that in the past, and I think there's some language about that in the memo from Lisa that I'm sure we can go through.
Okay.
And some of the board might remember this property was here in November 2024
Right, we
for the
just saw
sunroom.
this property,
Yeah, so
right.
it'll look
Okay.
familiar.
Okay. Well, I think this is an example of how to do this, right? This is really great. I don't know, Lisa. Let's go to you quickly. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so sorry, there was a late memo on this one. It came to my attention a little later. I didn't know it had been uploaded to the Dropbox. But I did try to put some comments together, which I'm sure we'll get to the applicant as well. There are a few more things I'd like to see on the plan itself. Mostly it involves just clarification of items such as the method for removing the invasives outside of the Phragmites zone, including equipment used and cut height, time of year, number of cuts, depth of ground disturbance. Some of those things like the olive can have like a lot of root structures that if they're not taken up could be damaged. So I'd like a better understanding of what that invasive control looks like. I've asked for some clarification on certain species, including there's a lot of grasses actually there underneath and around some of the shrubs beyond the path. The path I'm not particularly concerned about. That a mowed path makes a lot of sense, but the grasses around there were labeled as a type of like warm season fescue native sod, which is not typically a native variety. So a little bit more information on that would be helpful to know that it is consistent with that native wetlands species. I saw Salix babylonica, like the willow tree there, which is not native and can be quite invasive. So I'd like to see that. Ideally, I would recommend that be replaced with a native species of tree. And then there's just a few points like and you can clarify some of this now maybe, like there's the wetlands line and then the setback from that, and it looks like you start with the Phragmites area for clearing kind of a bit back from the wetlands. So I'm curious, is anything happening in between that, in that white zone that's not included, or is that just going to be left the way it is, and how that might impact your ability to then control that invasive coming in. So, there's just these notes will be shared with you with a few other items about, fencing for protecting from deer, how you're judging things like the survivorship that were noted on the plan. And then in general, I would say the plan is broadly consistent with the goals of the wetlands code, but I would like a little bit of clarification on those points. I didn't see a full form for the SECRA. in there. I did see a short form with the application, but not a full form, but the code does require a full form for this application. So I know that's a bit of a, it's a little bit of an admin, not too much more information maybe to enter, but there is information on there in terms of coverages and how those are changing, which would be helpful information for evaluating this application. And then as you were discussing some of the notes on potential conditions when this is ready for review, which is, this is a tidal wetlands that this is on, so while the DEC doesn't regulate, Southampton manages its own freshwater wetlands permits, this still should be submitted to the DEC for the disturbance within the wetlands area of the tidal wetlands. And I think that environmental permitting from other agencies such as the DEC would be a condition of approval. And then as well as a monitoring plan for how an annual monitoring plan so that this can be managed and the maintenance can be overseen.
How does that sound to you?
I think it sounds pretty complete.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And just from an administrative standpoint, I'll just note because the property is on Hetty Creek, we were required to refer it to the Suffolk County Planning Commission, which we've done.
Okay.
We're still waiting for a response from them. Likely it would be a letter of local determination, but we're still within the period where they have to comment.
Okay. Okay. Lisa, do you think that you can get everything to Team LaGuardia in the very short term so that they may prepare something for our hearing in 2 weeks, or?
I actually have a copy.
I did
Oh,
share.
you have it
I did
already.
share
Get
the
it,
memo. Yes.
at
I was
5
going to say,
o'clock.
he probably
Yeah.
has possession of it, but I know he
Okay.
hasn't had a lot of time to look at it.
Okay.
Hot off the
Okay.
press. Maybe
Okay.
I'll just 2 minutes. I'll just jump in on her
Yeah,
comments
yeah,
here.
yeah, sure.
I think they're all totally reasonable. Thank you, Lisa. This is very thorough. We have no objections to any of these comments. We can turn this around and
Okay.
revise and address these. We have submitted an application to the DEC concurrent with this.
Okay.
So that was in January, it was submitted. We can provide a copy of that to the board, that's no problem. And I think the last thing, Lisa, I just wanted to say, we'll clarify the native meadow sod that we're proposing for some of this. The intent behind that is just unique to this site because given the seed bank, the invasive seed bank that's so severe in the soil here, we felt that the best chance for mitigating that growth would be a section of sod, of this native sod, to
Okay.
just suppress that.
Okay.
Not all of this is that, but some of it will be, but then we're also going to plant pockets of perennials and woody shrubs into the sod.
Okay.
So it's just a method of kind of easier maintenance control
Okay.
long term.
Okay. So do you think in addition to the changes you make to your plan, you can do a narrative that responds to her points?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maintenance we can talk about.
Okay. Yeah, sure. And maybe Alex, you have a copy of our standard like inspection routine annual.
I can share what has been a requirement of permits in the past,
Sure.
where typically they've required like the filing of an annual ongoing report, detailing the health of plantings
Sure.
and things like that.
Yeah.
That's that would be up to the board, but if that's something that we would want to implement, Lisa could incorporate that into the draft wetlands permit,
Okay.
would be pretty
Um,
standard practice for the village.
So Jacob,
John.
Sorry. Adjourn to the next hearing, or would you like to wait until April?
I was going to ask you, Mr. Chairman, if, given that these changes are agreeable, we're going to address them pretty rapidly, could we close the public hearing and then just press this forward pending those changes?
What do you think, Brian?
Your next date is only 2 weeks away. I think it's safer that you keep it open in the event that there are comments or submissions that need to be addressed in the
Yeah.
interim and at the hearing.
I think we all view this positively, so let's keep it open. We'll adjourn to the
Okay.
next hearing, and hopefully in 2 weeks we can
Okay.
close it out for you.
Thank you.
okay?
Yeah, just the goal behind that is just we want to plant this and get a growing season in.
I get it. It's fast arriving.
It is this week,
What's the
yes.
timeline for a DEC permit?
Hopefully any day now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get you in there by spring. Assuming everything
Okay.
else goes according to plan.
Great.
Okay.
We'll
So,
hopefully at our next meeting we'll still be within the county's comment period, but I can reach out to them to see if they've been able to look at this. That way at least we'll get that letter on file so we know that the board can act.
Okay. Okay, so I will move to adjourn this case to our next hearing on in 2 weeks. The date again, Alex? The 24th? 27th?
March 27th.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you for your time
Appreciate it.
tonight, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.
Lisa, thank you so much. We can say goodnight.
Thank you. Good night. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
And you'll coordinate with John on the specifics.
Yeah, Alex and I can discuss getting us in contact with the applicant.
Okay, super. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, that was 121 Lee, so now we'll move to case 3180, 30 County Road 39A. Do we have anyone
They-
here for that
They
application?
did tell me that they would be here for tonight's meeting.
Yeah?
If they're on Zoom, we would just need them to raise their hands so we could admit
Sage,
them.
no? Okay. There's been many adjournments on this case.
Yes, and we did let them know that, the board would expect them to appear to continue this case.
Okay.
It's also pending in front of the planning board and has been adjourned pending the outcome of this board.
Okay.
They've been in contact. Sometimes they've asked for adjournments. I know they were aware of this date. My last correspondence with them said that they were going to be here. So I don't know if maybe we want to give them a second call in case they're running late and come back to it.
Have they renoticed?
I don't believe there has been a renotice for this
Okay.
property.
Okay, look, how about this? Can we just move on and see if they show up?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have to adjourn or close or anything?
No,
We're
I
just
think
gonna
we'll just move
Okay.
on and then we'll see if they're here later.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on. To case 3186, 39 Moses.
Bailey Larkin with Bennett and Reed, offices at 212 Windmill Lane in Southampton. And I believe our clients, Ashley and Matt Cordell, may be on Zoom. Don't know if they want to participate, but they are on Zoom tonight. This is a continuation of a public hearing that was held in January. In response to comments raised by the board, we had filed an additional letter, including copies of the 1998 prior decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals, a copy of the covenant that was recorded against the property, and we also included in that package a conceptual plan showing what could have been constructed on this property under the code that was in effect in 1998. As was discussed at the last meeting, we had submitted this application due to a change in circumstances, most specifically the amendment of the code to allow for further restrictions on the size of homes. In 1998, at the time the decision was adopted, the only restriction on the size of homes was lot coverage restriction. And I actually did some digging today in John's office. Believe it or not, we keep all of the amendments to the village code for our paper copies that we discard. And I dug through and I actually found, because I know John represented to the board that in 1998, the only restriction was the lot coverage restriction. And I was able to find in the amendment in 2003 and the discarded pages from the village code, which actually provide that in this zone, which is R20, at that time, there was only a 20% lot coverage restriction for this property. You could construct a 2.5-story home at 35 feet in height, and there were no pyramid restrictions, just to confirm the diagram that we had submitted with the board in support of this request. As mentioned at the prior hearing, the proposed expansion of the home on this lot is entirely conforming with the code as it currently exists. No request for setback relief is filed, no GFA restrictions, lot coverage, pyramid height. It's actually, again, under current height restrictions lower than what would have been permitted in 1998 at the time of the prior decision. We also filed a neighborhood analysis demonstrating that even as expanded, the house is not inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood. And unless there are any other questions with the board, I think we've given you the information you had requested. I don't have anything else to submit tonight.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Bailey on this?
Is the issue that we should disregard the restriction imposed previously because there are zoning rules in place now that would provide, quote, adequate,
Correct.
satisfactory regulation, and therefore the restriction should be lifted?
Correct.
That's what it comes down to, right?
That's it.
I have a question
Go
about this particular visual.
Mhm.
Are you suggesting that you're going to replant the whole perimeter with various evergreens?
I can confirm with the project architect, but I do believe that was the intention. Those plans were actually filed, I believe John mentioned at the last meeting, they had been filed with the Architectural Review Board. There was an application filed, the application was then held because this restriction was discovered. But I do believe that is the intention, to screen it. It's a flag lot, they do want privacy back there. If it was a condition of this board's approval to require further screening, I don't believe they would object to that.
Tom, what do you think here?
So you're arguing that when this was subdivided off, these restrictions were put in place. Why are they not still relevant?
At the time that this lot was subdivided, there weren't the same village code restrictions that are in effect right now. So residential development was only restricted based on lot coverage. And it's reflected in the decision that when this lot was subdivided, they were at their maximum lot coverage, which was how it was regulated at the time. And so I think there was a fear on the part of the board of overdevelopment. This was a property that was developed by 2 single-family homes. It was essentially like paper subdivision. They tried to put one individual home on each individual lots. They're smaller lots, and there was a little bit of concern on the part of the board. Since that time, the trustees have really addressed that concern, and they've regulated the size of homes specifically. They enacted the gross floor regulations in 2003. They've restricted the height of homes because at the time they could have constructed to 35 feet and 2.5 stories. They've enacted pyramid restrictions to kind of keep development off property lines. So at this point in time, when it was subdivided, he could have built something as shown in the diagram that we submitted. So the change in circumstances here that we're asking you to consider is the fact that the trustees have really looked hard at the size of homes, and they've put into effect restrictions that are significantly more restrictive than were in effect at the time of the adoption of the decision in 1998.
Do we have any comments from the surrounding neighbors surrounding the flag lot?
I have not heard anything from them. I didn't see anything in the Dropbox unless I missed something. And I don't believe anyone spoke at the last meeting.
So if we look at the 1998 zoning board decision,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at the gentleman and lady who were on the board at the time, there's some very thoughtful, very well-regarded Southampton Village folks, and they devote a lot of this decision to the scenario that is playing out right now. And they're pretty clear about their concerns, and they're very clear that were it not for the late offer to limit future development, they would not have approved the application to subdivide in the first place. They obviously couldn't have known what sort of zoning rules would come into play this many years later, but their language really covers what you're asking for right now. And while I'm sympathetic to the homeowners, you know, this is exactly what they wanted to avoid. Do you disagree?
I do. I think that there was a fear and a concern over development of the lot. And there weren't any restrictions in effect at the time that would have prevented something significantly larger than what we're proposing here from being placed on this property.
So reading from it, therefore, a grant of such variances could result in a future undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and/or a future detriment to nearby properties by increasing the likelihood of future proposals for new or additional construction on the subject property. Do you disagree with that?
I disagree with that in that I mean, it's speculative on the part of the board to consider what development would be in the surrounding area. We've demonstrated to you that since the time of this decision in 1998, parcels in the surrounding area have been developed to an extent where the proposed development on this property is significantly less than the existing surrounding development pattern in this area. And all of those properties, in accordance with the current code restrictions, were allowed significantly more than this property is going to have on it.
Alex, are the lot sizes non-conforming?
I'd have to double check, but my understanding is they are, and that was part of the variance relief that was granted to allow
Right.
the subdivision.
Yeah.
This lot looks materially smaller than its surrounding neighbors.
But there are lots in the surrounding area that are consistent in size, and we actually did file with you a neighborhood analysis that
Thank
showed
you.
that there are parcels similar in size or smaller developed with with homes that are as large as is proposed here. This home is not over the village code allowance for gross floor area, and actually most of the homes on the surrounding lots have been developed with homes that currently do not comply with gross floor area regulations. Some of them were approved right around that time when the village at one point had a 12% plus 1,500 square foot gross floor area calculation. And so you'll see in the surveys that we filed on January 7th that a lot of the homes on the surrounding parcels, when you consider the size of the lot under current gross floor area regulations, actually do not comply. So this home is not inconsistent with the character. I don't think the board could have contemplated over the course of these years that the development pattern in this portion of the village.
Just, I don't have that neighborhood analysis in front of me right now, but does it include any flag lots along Moses?
Specifically flag lots. We do actually. We include 3 flag lots along those, off of Harvest and off of Hill Street. But they
But
abut.
none on Moses?
No, but they abut this property on Moses.
And Luke, to answer your question, the lot size here is 14,117 in the R20 district, which would otherwise require 20,000.
Alex, how big is the existing structure before the 893-foot addition?
Ooh, I'd have to pull that up on the plans unless
It's a
Bailey,
little
you
over
have that.
1,400 square feet. We're making it about
Okay.
2,000. You can
You mean
confirm that.
footprint?
No, the square footage of the house.
Oh, I can give you
She
that.
said 1,400 feet.
Approximately, if I add it up right.
Square footage, sorry.
Yeah, it looks, according to what I'm looking at, it says 1811 on the
1811.
first floor and 202 on the second floor.
There you
And it's proposed to
go.
be,
2906.
Which is as of right per today's zoning code, right?
Correct.
yeah,
Okay, so you're arguing that the reason this previous decision should be disregarded is because zoning is much more stringent now,
Mhm.
but the applicant is proposing something that does fall in within current zoning.
Right.
Correct.
So they're not necessarily correlated. And then page 6, items, condition number 6, the existing house on lot 2 shall not be enlarged or extended or increased in size. No new or additional accessory building or structure shall be constructed on lot 2 other than the new garage allowed pursuant to condition 3 above. I mean, I think we can give you one last chance to convince us here.
Just a correction, it should be Lot 1, but that decision is identical with respect to what you just read.
Oh, sorry. So, yes, the existing house on lot 1 shall not be enlarged or extended or increased in size. No new or additional accessory building or structure shall be constructed on lot 1 other than a new garage or accessory building allowed pursuant to condition 2 above.
So let me just jump in here, but let's just talk about this for a minute. If that board had today's zoning restrictions,
Mm-hmm.
they would have been, that would not have been the decision. Do we agree on that?
Expand.
Under, what she's telling us is, under the current zoning restrictions,
Mm-hmm.
they could build what they want to build, what they're proposing today.
You think they would have felt safe
Well, I'm
not
saying,
including?
they wouldn't have had jurisdiction, because they would not have had to come before the zoning board of appeals for a variance. It would have been
The variance
following
was for
the
lot
code.
size.
Wait,
Pardon
they had to.
The variance was
approve
for a lot size because the
Oh.
lots were smaller, so
Sorry.
that, they
That's
would have
true.
come
They
to
had to
this board.
approve the
That's true.
subdivision, and these were their, as I understand it, these were their conditions
Okay.
on approving the
All right.
subdivision,
Yeah.
right, Alex?
The variances for lot size that allowed the subdivision,
You're
but
right.
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
it's
they-
so small, they said,
Their concern
what they
is
could say today is, it's still such a small lot, we're not going to allow you to build this, even though the current restrictions would, because it's just such a small lot, it's too dense, or
Or they
something.
could say we won't approve the subdivision.
Yeah, or they wouldn't approve the subdivision. Okay, I'm catching up to you. All
I
right.
think, right?
I was trying to help. All right, makes sense. It's just too small. Okay.
Bailey, make it make sense.
Well, we had submitted some additional case law actually in support of this in our last letter as well. So I do want to go over just quickly Sandy International versus Corman, which was a decision against this board actually.
This was about parking.
Correct. It was a decision where the board imposed a condition on the approval that actually required a return to the board for any additional improvements on the property. And that decision was overturned based on the fact that they took away the ability of the building inspector to actually perform his duties under the village code. And so we had further submitted in support of this application the fact that under the restriction that was imposed, the board eliminated the building inspector's ability to regulate the property under the code as it currently exists. So,
Yeah, but that's sort of distinguishable, because that's dealing with taking away an agency's authority and so on. This is a subdivision in the middle of other residences, and we're just trying to figure out what is fair and appropriate given the small size of the lot and the proposed structure, what's fair to neighboring residents.
Right.
So it's a bit of a different public policy argument, you know?
And-
I'm trying to help you, but I kind of understand how I could distinguish that case.
And I would point out a different legal argument too, because by holding the ability to make decisions on subsequent changes to a property where the only consideration at the time and the only variance that was being considered was off-street parking, is certainly not directly related to the variance that's requested. So that's outside of their, of the board's realm, of their jurisdiction. They cannot impose that condition. So the court, even though it was you got your predecessors, was absolutely correct in saying that the board had absolutely no jurisdiction to impose that condition.
Whereas they did
here,
have jurisdiction in
the condi-
1998 to
right,
impose this.
The condition related to
condition.
the specific variances that were being
Yeah.
requested, so it was
Wow.
directly related, and
it's-
therefore I think
it's
that they're
distinguishable.
distinguishable.
Yeah, got it. Agreed.
Would the board feel comfortable closing this case
Yeah.
for written decision?
I would.
Okay. Brian, you have a sense of which way we're leaning?
Before you do that, you should just see if anyone else wants to be heard with respect to the application.
That's a good point. Is there anyone in the public or Sage on Zoom who has their hand raised?
Where's the property?
Come on up.
I don't want to comment, but I listened to everything.
Thank you.
39 Moses Lane.
39 Moses.
Moses and Hill, essentially.
Okay, well, I'm familiar with the area, but not the property. So I was listening to everything, and everything that you asked was accurate. So, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, in that case, I'll motion to close case, where did it go? 3186 for written decision. Second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay. Thank you, Bailey.
yeah.
Just to note for the record, Joyce left the meeting
Yes.
just before the end of this hearing.
Case 3188 has requested an adjournment. I'll move to accept that adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Case 3192 has requested an adjournment. I'll move to approve that request.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll move on to new cases. Case 3194, 575 Hampton Road.
And I believe we should have affidavits in the file for this one, Brian? I think they left you the affidavits of mailing and posting. Unless they're, nope, here they are.
Not on my desk.
Fancy one of our police.
Absolutely true.
They know about this.
Now on my desk.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Good evening.
Good, good. Thank
Kevin
you.
Springer, Dynamic Legal for the applicant.
I'm sorry, say your name again?
Kevin Springer.
Hey, Kevin.
How are you?
Good, good.
So we have what I consider a small ask on a rather undersized lot. We're proposing to put in a pool, which unfortunately puts us a little over our lot coverage and our green space. Before I get into that, though, I did visit the property today and was shown that we, in the last 2 weeks, due to a septic, trying to close out the septic, we had a cover that was in the driveway.
Sorry, what do you mean close out the septic? Get your green stamp from
Yeah,
the
our-
health
our
department?
final-
Okay.
Yes, our final building.
Okay.
Yep, sorry. In doing that, we actually gained some green space, so I don't know how you want me to show you, but if you look at the
If you put
survey-
that on the table, we'll be able to pick it up on the screen facing you.
Which one?
Just flat on the table facing you, yeah.
Okay. So if you see here in the front, you'll see two metal covers just to the left of the entrance to the home. And where you see the 49 and a half, if you slide that over to the actual front step on the left-hand side, that has now been filled in with grass. I do have a picture of it if anybody is interested. So that section comes to about 275 square feet. So that would actually help us with the green space.
Kevin, do you mind just circling that
So-
area on the?
Yeah, so if you see this line right here,
Yep.
if you slide that over to the front step here
Uh-huh.
and come pretty much straight down,
Okay.
and it keeps in these two covers, we're not driveway grade.
Sure.
So instead of pulling them out and redoing them, we just cut back the driveway
Okay.
and added grass there. I did a quick measurement of it today. I did not get a chance to get to the surveyor, but in my measurement, we gain about 275 square feet of green space. The lot itself is a rather small lot. It's 13,000 square feet. The pool is relatively small as far as pools. It's a standard 16 by 32. The property is extremely protected with evergreens and everything you can think of. It's virtually, you can barely see it from the street, much less from the neighbors. And obviously on the one side to the right, which would be the east, we have the condominiums, and then we also have the shopping center. So it's really not going to impact, the neighborhood or anyone else, in that general vicinity. I know that the board, and I know I've received a couple of, where we're just barely over, we have received, favorable decisions in the past.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you have any questions.
Could you repeat how much green space you think you picked up by making that change?
Roughly 275 square feet.
Okay, just so according to the notice here, the property is short 776 square feet of green space to meet the minimum.
Yes.
So not
Um,
enough to not require the variance.
Yeah,
Right, no,
that's
it's
a
not
good
enough.
that's a good segue, Alex. Talk to us about this green space law, history, when it came into effect.
Sure. So as the board knows, we regulate development on properties in a couple of ways, one being gross floor area, which you're familiar with, that has to do with the size of buildings. There's also a minimum for lot coverage, which includes the footprint of buildings, as well as things like pools, tennis courts, porches, and things like that. However, when we were doing research for the village's comprehensive plan, there was a concern about overdevelopment in the form of pavement. For example, a patio at grade or a driveway, asphalt, gravel, things like that are not counted towards gross floor area and they're not counted towards lot coverage. And there was a concern raised that people were, some properties were becoming overly paved in pervious surfaces, which it was felt was not in keeping with the character of the village. So there was a recommendation made in the comprehensive plan to add a third regulation of a minimum green space requirement, which set forth a sliding scale of how much of the property had to be landscaped, so that, grass, natural material, trees, and things like that. That recommendation was adopted into code by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So based on the property size in all residential zones, including in MF20, there is a minimum green space requirement. In this case, it's 45%. When we did some research at the time of the comprehensive plan, we found that the vast majority of properties in the village were compliant with that. It was felt that the code wouldn't be overly restrictive. There were really only a handful of examples that we found at the time that exceeded the thresholds that were put in, that we really felt were overly paved and developed. I believe this is the first request for relief since that code provision was implemented, I believe, sometime last year.
Do you know when last year?
I'm sure I could double check the code. I think it was sometime in 2024 or the end of 2023.
I think it was at the end of '23.
That may be right. Yeah, the code comprehensive plan, I believe, was adopted in '22, and this was one of the implementation one of the measures that were adopted since then.
Okay. So looking at the survey, I do see a lot of driveway. Is the existing garage at the rear of the yard, is that actually a garage? Like, do cars need to drive all the way back there?
Yes, it's a
a functioning garage.
Yes.
Alex,
Then the
sorry, go
reason, the garage, not the garage, the driveway, as you can see, is rather narrow. The issue is that if you park one car, or technically two cars, the first car can't get out. Thus, that's why we have in the front, actually also for front entrance to the property. That is why we have a lot of driveway for this lot. There was no other place when the house was built to put the garage at the time. And yes, it is a garage.
And to answer your question earlier, the green space requirement was put in when the table was amended on April 23rd, 2024. And I should mention the one exception to the green space requirement is that permeable driveways that have grass that goes through, something called geoblock, are counted as 50% towards the green space requirement.
Okay. So
with the gain of the 275, we're going to be up around the 41% if my math is correct, which I think it is, but gets us closer to the 45%.
I think you can hit the green space requirement if you pull up some of the asphalt in the back and do what Alex says, which is the permeable grass.
The geoblock.
The
pavers.
geoblock,
Yeah, Alex and I had spoke about that.
I think that's probably
Well,
something you guys can do.
I was also going to mention, after speaking to the client today, we were also willing to scale the pool back just a little bit. If you go too far, you lose steps and whatnot for a child. It becomes more of just like a lap pool, which is kind of defeats the purpose for a family. So if we could also gain a little bit there also.
Right. So my point being, I think you can get over the hurdle of the green space requirement, but we're possibly or probably a little more concerned with the lot coverage requirement. The board doesn't typically grant variance requests for lot coverage. So what is driving the coverage? What is the proposals here? Is it really just the pool?
Yes, yep, there's really not, everything else is, existing and has been since the house was built. I had recommended taking the pool down to about a 14 by 28,
Mm-hmm.
which gains us a couple hundred, well, about 150, I think, in lot coverage.
So
Which would
16
get-
by 32 is 512, right? And we're over.
15 by 30 is what, 350?
450.
450, I'm sorry.
Well, let's see. You're requesting 3,758, where 3,320. So you've got to get rid of 438 square feet. If my math is correct. I'll put it out to the board. What do we think here?
I'm supportive of your position that this covers as much of the lot as it should. That permeable area could get us under.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, I don't
a
know.
relatively easy lift. But how do we feel about the lot coverage increase?
You mean because of the pool?
It is because of the pool
Yeah.
here.
Well, if we come down to, as I had mentioned, the 14 by 28, that gets us, it's 392 plus, so that's 100.
Well, yeah, let's talk about what is your existing lot coverage is 3246.
Right, and with the pool as it stands is 3758.
Okay, so you're allowed.
If you take approximately 130 off of that,
Right.
or it, then you're at basically 3,500 almost, a little over. So we're
Okay,
a
so
lot
you're
closer.
you're only 74 square feet under your max allowable lot coverage, right? Because
That's now.
That's now. That's today. Because right now,
Right.
your existing on your survey is 3,246. Your allowable is 3,320. The delta there being 74 square feet.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm trying to keep the pool to a size where we can actually still have, where it's not an actual, just a lap pool. Because then it, this is a family house, and, we'd like to obviously keep it for kids. It's, more for kids anyway. It's
Sure.
Can you make the driveway in the front by the front steps permeable? The square area where the cars
Well,
pull into?
After speaking to Alex and then speaking to the owner, we had discussed doing either in the front or back by the garage for the green space.
How about both? That way you get your pool.
Say that again?
How about both?
So the driveway doesn't count towards lot coverage.
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
never mind.
We're kind of talking about two different
Yeah, we are.
things. No, all
Sorry.
good. Don't be silly.
Gotcha.
So taken on the surface is a property that won't permit any more development, according to code.
Yes.
I mean, do you think it's reasonable plus or minus 10% of the 45%?
I personally am not worried about them getting the green space to work.
Okay.
I'm a little more focused on the lot coverage question, which it does not concern itself with driveways.
Yeah.
It's really just footprint of structures.
Right.
Pools,
roof
house,
structures.
garage, porches,
Deck.
deck.
If you shrink the pool to 14 by 28, does that solve your problem? Or is it not
We're
enough?
still gonna be a hair over.
Mhm.
Not a lot, but a lot closer than what we're asking now.
Alex, on the survey, it appears as if the deck has 1, 2, 3 risers up, so it's probably 18 inches above grade, plus or minus. If it was flush with the grade, and were a bluestone patio, would that still count as lot coverage?
My understanding is no, not if it's a patio at grade.
Oh,
Okay.
that's huge.
So I think that's
Well,
your
this
answer.
deck is already, this is built.
Yeah.
The deck has been there for years, and it's got a fireplace on it. I mean, I don't see how we could even do that. We'd have to demolish the whole deck to bring it down to the level. And then we'd have to do pavers or slate or bluestone or whatever,
Yes.
which is an expensive task.
I'm throwing out ideas for you,
No,
to, get
I
your,
understand that.
for you to get your swimming pool.
Yeah, that's why I'm just trying to cut down the pool a little bit.
Well, I mean, right now you're only allowed 74 more feet on the property.
Right, I understand that. We have a tight property, that's,
Yeah.
it's not a large lot, I understand that.
Right.
And the house is not actually even that, it's not an overly big house for as far as, village and this area. I mean, we're surrounded by the condos again, so, I mean, as variances go with the character of the neighborhood, it's not going to change, even if we were 2% over, which I don't, in my personal opinion, I don't believe is a big ask. And I understand, I mean, I've seen people ask for a ton, and, but I told the owner right off the bat, we're not gonna ask for a ton, because it's just gonna cause conflict from the get-go, and we're trying to avoid that anyway.
Okay. Let's come back to this. Chris, I think you wanted to speak on this application. Come on up.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
You good? So, I was playing around with my iPad.
So name.
Oh, Christopher Broish, 555 Hampton Road.
Okay.
So if you look at my picture here, there's a lot of asphalt and a lot of brick. So, and also notice that the garage is 5 feet on the paperwork here for the property owner, I think. I don't want to understate or overstate that, is it? No, 6 foot.
6.5, it looks
6.6,
like, yeah.
okay. So it almost looks like it was gonna be the pool and the pool house and pergola, or no pool in the original design. As far as size of the house, like this here, that's the neighbor's house, and this is my house here. And you can see my lot goes from here to here. So I was actually looking at this lot 20 years ago, and I didn't get it for one reason or another, but I was surprised how big the house is and how much asphalt and brick is there. I'm gonna drive by and look at it. I guess the other thing is, it's for sale. So I don't think it's for occupancy.
Well, the buyer is the one really pushing for the pool.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to do it. I'm not opposed to it. Don't get me wrong here. It's just that if you're gonna do all this, I'm gonna come to you a year or 2 years from now or 3 years from now and ask for the same.
Sure.
Okay, and that's perfectly normal. I actually like looking at my backyard and seeing, birds and rabbits and deer. I like deer. But, I know the former owner and the current owner. It's just that when they built this, I was surprised how big the house was. And I was more amazed by how much asphalt and brick is there. I don't know how that happened in the first place. Do you have any questions for me?
That's the house.
Well, I will say that
Where the
when we
red
did,
pin is dropped, yes.
when we did build it, I wasn't involved in building this at all. But it conformed with everything, that was, at the time. And it still does. I mean, we have an open building permit for the basement that's gonna get inspected any day now. So there's nothing that's non-conforming per se, even at today's standards.
Well, it doesn't meet the green space requirement, but it is grandfathered in as pre-existing non-conforming,
Yes.
just to be
Do
clear.
we know when the CO was issued for the house?
Alex. can you
I believe
tell us?
it's in the file. I would have to just open it up here.
Well, it's just getting updated. That was
Sure.
the reason for the gaining some of the green space back because of that, for the Board of Health.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Chris, anything else?
No, like I say, I'm not opposing it. I'm just saying
Sure.
that I would, if you're gonna set a precedent, I might follow it in the future.
Yeah, no, good comment.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Sage, is there anyone else who has their hand raised? Okay. I'm gonna start with you, Linda. How do you feel here? Again, going under the assumption that we can probably get the driveway and the green space to work.
I can make that work.
Yeah.
One way or another, I can make that work.
Yeah. He's maxed out on his lot coverage. It's basically pool, yay or nay.
I think yay, because I'm assuming that you're gonna pull up all that asphalt and put grass down.
He's not. Well, but that won't change his lot coverage calculation. He will pull. Yeah, they will change the proposal for the backyard likely to be pervious pavers, which are strong enough to take a car, but they'll have grass come through them, right? So
Yep,
he'll
and then-
meet his green space requirement likely, but are you okay with granting a variance to go over the lot coverage?
By a small margin, yes.
Okay.
And Luke,
Okay.
I'm showing on the screen, this is the image from the comprehensive plan about the type
Right,
of
that's-
pavement that counts 50% towards green space.
It's about right.
So that only counts for 50%?
Yeah, it would count, right, it would count as 50% towards green space. So 10 square feet of that counts as 5 square feet of green space towards meeting that requirement.
No, it's
Tom,
still
what do you
not-
think?
It's still not the end of the world.
I think this is already way too big. It's at the limit of coverage, and this is self-created. The next buyer knows what the zoning says. And the current owner is trying to extract value that's detrimental to the neighborhood so that he can sell a more, an even denser lot or property.
I understand that. I don't agree with the detrimental to the neighborhood, though.
Oh.
Because
I
there
was-
are other pools in the area, and this, you can't even see this, you can barely see the house, much less you're not gonna see a pool.
I think the 3,000-foot view is that any shift away from the code is detrimental to the neighborhood.
Because it'll attract other people to use the precedent to their own benefit.
That part I understand. I totally understand that part.
And what we're sensitive to here is if we give to one, we have to give to everybody.
Yeah.
So we can't just look at you in isolation, I'm afraid.
What I can do is I can go back to them and see if we can shrink it. I mean, I have to talk to the pool company now. Now I'm gonna have to go back to the pool company and see what is the absolute smallest pool. You know, we still may be a percentage over, though.
Yeah, so right now the largest pool you're allowed is 74 square feet,
Which is gonna
right?
be, that's
So,
not even a pool.
It's a bathtub.
like I said, I don't know if this board has ever granted a lot coverage variance. Carol, what do you think?
I'm very concerned about moving on that maximum lot coverage for the reasons we just held. We've got somebody else sitting here saying, I'm coming in, and I'm gonna ask for it, and we're gonna have a real problem in the village. So I'm with you. I'm very concerned about the precedent, and I'm very concerned about the coverage.
I think that if your client really wants the pool, there is a way forward for him. I know it's not cheap. I know he doesn't want to do work there, but were he to bring down the deck to grade level, it wouldn't count towards coverage. So what I am going to move to do is to adjourn this to the next hearing. That will give you some time to talk to your client and see if that doesn't make sense to him.
Okay, only thing is, for the next hearing, I am out of town, so we can,
I can adjourn you to April.
that's fine.
Yeah? Okay. So, Alex, what's the date in April?
April 24th.
What is
Okay.
it?
April 24th.
4/24.
All right, so I'll move then to adjourn this application until the April 24 hearing. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Right.
Aye? Okay. Thank you. I think this is one we can work out.
I'll figure something out. Thank you.
The next case is 3196, which is 52 First Neck Lane. The applicant has requested an adjournment. I will move to accept that adjournment.
And then they believe they did drop off the affidavits today as well.
Okay.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Oh, that's the flagpole lot, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so the next case then is 3198 177 David White's Lane. How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good, good.
I'm Joseph Hickey.
Could you just turn the microphone towards you? We just want to make sure we can pick you up for the minutes. Thank you.
Joseph Hickey, 177 David White's Lane.
Hi, Joseph.
Hi, I'm Mary Hickey.
Hi, Mary.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
We had a hickey recently, but that wasn't this property.
No, I don't believe so.
That was
No.
Meadow Lane.
That's right.
That was the dock on Meadow Lane, and
That was that one.
memorable,
It was memorable.
to me anyway.
Yes. Okay, the floor is yours.
So, just as a little background, we purchased the property in 2015. When we purchased the property, we hired an architect to come in to give us suggestions upon where we could put a garage on a pool. At the time, we didn't have the funds to put the garage, so we put the pool in anticipation of later putting the garage in. Subsequently, the setbacks were changed. So the setbacks were 25 feet, now they're
40.
40 feet.
It's a corner lot, so it's
What we're
40.
asking is for a variance to stay within the non-conforming property that currently exists, because the house is now non-conforming.
Mm-hmm.
So we're asking for the variance to, it's how many? 9.4
So it's 9.4 feet to
feet.
put an attached garage on the Powell side.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
And then there are some other renovations included in the proposal that don't require a
Sure.
variance.
All by rights.
Right.
Okay.
And you have several, I mean, if you want us to walk through the plans or the variance request, whichever way you prefer that we do it.
So just one or two other things. The other piece is that we face Verizon, so we have no neighbors across the street from us, so nobody's gonna be looking at anything. The property is also hedged with 25-foot hedges.
You face Verizon across Powell.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're due north of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's where the proposed garage is. It's on the Powell side, behind the Evergreen line, but facing Verizon.
And we also asked the architect when they were designing it to make sure that they maximize green space and that they keep the structure as original looking as it possibly could. So the green space on the lot is still at 60.4%. The house would be cedar sided, cedar roofed, AZAC trimmed with half round gutters, so it looked very much like an original house. You know, the house was built in 1908, so we want to keep that look as much as possible.
I know this house.
That house was built in 1908?
Well,
Yeah, the original.
the front,
The front part.
Yeah. So
So that-
part of it's brick foundation,
part.
it's hand-laid brick foundation, and then there was an extension put on it.
okay. So
And that's another piece that we want to
That's
clean
the
up,
this,
because if you
no,
look
no,
at.
this is the proposal
Yeah.
right
Oh.
here. Right, so, this
Mhm.
right
Yep.
here, okay. Alex, is that accurate that the setback changed from 20, setback used to be 20 feet on this?
25.
25?
From 25 to 40? I'd have to double check. I don't remember that specific change. That might have predated me.
Yeah,
That was from Chris.
Yeah. I did
Okay.
go to the village a couple times to get some guidance. And the previous architect in 2015, when we bought the house, Charles Thomas, used to do a lot of work in the village, and he designed original plans with this in the,
Oh,
I
boy.
call it the front, but this on the Powell side and something else on the other side.
okay.
The other part is the front porch that currently exists. We would like to enclose that, but I don't believe that requires a variance because it's already existing. So it's enclosed.
That's right. You're only here for the Powell
The Powell side.
side.
And it allows us to tie the garage to the home.
So this setback is,
So I'm super sympathetic to your predicament, because you bought the
No.
house, you did your homework,
No.
you knew you could build what you wanted to
Setback
build,
is
and
40
suddenly
feet
they
now.
changed the rules
Yeah.
on you. So I'm totally
But,
sympathetic.
it's already
That was my worst nightmare, right? But, or all of ours. But let me ask you just a hypothetical question. You have beautiful plans. I'm not upending those at all. I'm just curious. Why not move the garage further away from Powell? Because you have the grass there.
We don't want to lose the green space.
Further
one
away
thing,
from
and-
Powell where? Oh, towards.
south.
Yeah.
I
South.
think so.
Because the pool is there. The pool is in the
Yeah.
ground already. And the
But there's
patio-
space, on these plans anyway, between the garage and the pool. I'm just saying, why not tighten that? And I think he's gonna say,
So
It's the line of the
there,
house.
there's,
You can
there's
explain.
not a lot of space. It may look
Okay.
like there is, but there's all sorts of pool equipment trenching that is in there.
okay,
Yeah.
It's, we'd have to rip it all out,
not so easy.
basically.
Okay,
So
fair
we're
enough.
taking it back to where we don't have to disturb the existing conditions.
Fair enough.
And it stays in line with the house. It's, the garage is
No, I
not
see that
coming
in the-
further forward
yeah.
to the street.
Your renderings are very helpful in that
Yeah,
regard.
they're beautiful. Alex, is the 22.4-foot setback to the west conforming?
Let me just take a look at the plan here.
To the west of the proposed garage?
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
30,
towards, Ted and Beatrix. I'm sorry, it took me a minute.
For the side yard setback?
yes.
It's showing on my survey as 21.8, but I believe it does comply because
It is, we kept it in line with the pool, which is conforming.
Yep.
So,
This says, mine says 22.4, but
Yeah.
Oh, I might be looking at a different document. Hold on.
he's talking about the setback here.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
The setback to the west.
Yep, I think there's a minor discrepancy between two of the plans.
Oh, there might, okay.
Um,
Oh, yeah, mine says, this plan says
21.8.
yeah, no,
Nevertheless, it
it's
sounds like 20 is the required side
Okay,
yard.
so
there.
Either
that's-
way is
yeah.
fine.
So we're only discussing Powell.
Yeah.
On
So,
the curb.
part of our mandate is to not exacerbate pre-existing non-conformance. Definitely appreciate that you held the garage in line and not closer to the street, but do have to second what Carol said in that pushing it south a little bit probably helps your case, and we do end up, it's a pretty substantial building on the Powell side. And, you know, if there was some push and pull between the buildings and you're able to push the garage back, it's not a small garage either, right? It is three cars. So
With the second story.
yes, that you can walk to directly, right, from the second story of the house?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I'm
Um,
showing the aerial just for reference for the board.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you're asking for 30 where 40 is required, so 25% relief. You know, that's debatable whether that's substantial or not.
Good,
It
not
is,
in the-
it's hard to say that this isn't self-created when you do have the space to move it south. I understand that
We hired an
you don't
architect.
want to throw money
No,
at
we
moving.
did hire an architect before we even put the pool in,
Yeah.
and said, what can we do? And basically, at the time, he said, you can do this, and we staggered putting the pool in before doing the extension. So we put the pool in intentionally, knowing that at the time, we could build a garage there.
He didn't tell you that you would need a variance?
We didn't at the time.
At the time, yeah.
It was 25 feet at
It
the
was
time.
25
Now it's
feet.
40.
Now it's 40.
So in the middle of
I
their
want a little
plan.
history on that, Alex, because I can't imagine a front yard setback being 25 feet.
Yeah, I'd have to, the E-code doesn't say what the code used to be, so I'd have to
Yeah.
go back to an older version of the code book to see what the table
Yeah.
is.
So how So right now, we need 9.4. So if there's some room for us to move further back without having to tear up, like, is there some place that we wouldn't have to completely uproot all of the pool piping and things,
We might be able to go back a little bit further because.
like, that's what I'm asking, can we go back a little bit further without having to meet the full 10 feet? Is there
Yeah, I
something
mean,
that we
maybe
could
if
meet
it's
you
a
in the-
two-car garage, you can slide in and not have to move that pool equipment at all.
No, it's not the pool
Oh.
equipment, it's in the ground, so the issue is, I don't know if I can.
It's piping and stuff.
What was that?
It's piping and,
Yeah, so all of the gas lines, see
Oh.
where the two circuit boards are?
Sure.
And then there's a gas grill right below them. There's a 5-foot trench that goes from the house out to the pool lines where the gas line runs out, all the pool equipment
Got
runs
it.
out. So I can push it back a little bit before I hit that, but if I come back too far, I have to rip out the gas lines, rip out the pool equipment. And I mean, like I said, we had that all laid out,
Yeah.
knowing at the
Mhm.
time that we
Mhm.
planned on doing this.
We just
and then-
delayed a little too long. So if we could have the architect draw, Joe, where the break is in the house, you see where the bend is?
Yeah.
Instead of coming to the, I'm gonna call it the front left corner, could we come back to the back left? Is it easier on there? If that would help us, like, if there's a way to meet in the middle as well.
I think that you should try for that, and let's see about pulling it back off the street to the furthest extent that you can.
That I can.
Okay.
You may also want to discuss with your architect what the minimum depth is for the garage, because I know you're pulling in the cars straight in from Powell, so I don't know how long your particular car is, but if you, there may be, you may be able to pick up a foot or so there.
Okay.
Yeah, I
that
think
a
was-
thought.
I think he's at it.
Okay,
Okay.
fair
It's
enough.
between 21 and 22 feet on a garage.
Pretty much the
Yeah.
minimum, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the length isn't the issue, it's the depth
Yeah.
this way,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Because even if it's shorter, it's still too far close to the street.
yeah, I mean, look, personally, I would probably prefer a two-car garage rather than three. Given that you have so much driveway space over on David White's Lane.
It was more to, use it as like 2.5 and put the outdoor equipment, the outdoor furniture in it.
We have no basement. So we
Yeah.
have no usable basement.
Okay.
So the basement is an old hand-laid brick basement, and you really can't put anything in there.
Yeah.
You
I get it.
Want to
I get it.
be
Okay.
destroyed.
Do you, to my fellow board members, are we sort of reaching a good compromise?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Given that this will require your architect to do some work, I don't think you'll make it in 2 weeks. Do you want me to put you on that agenda, or do you want to go
I'll
on
make
April?
it.
Yeah.
You
What's
can make
the-
it?
What's the date?
Wait, let's just see the date. He'll turn stuff around.
He's great.
This is great.
Okay.
Like
It's
he'll do
March
it.
March
27th.
27th, so then the plans would be due,
Thursday,
I think the
March.
Thursday prior.
Can I ask what day of the week that is?
It's a Thursday, March 27th,
Yep, so
Yeah.
then the plans
I'm
would be
back.
on the 20th.
No, I'm back in town, that's okay, I'm here.
but the plans would be due before
the-
that.
Yep, the plans would be due on the 20th, and the meeting is on the 27th,
Yeah.
both
We can do
So
Thursdays.
Thursday,
We can do
do
that.
plans. Thursday.
Okay. So that's next Thursday.
And is it possible that we maybe come back in Zoom? That we've been here, can we join virtually?
By Zoom? Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's fine, right, Brian?
Of course.
Totally.
Okay. Okay, so I will move to adjourn this case, which is what, 3198, to the next hearing, March 27th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And then
Thank
should
you
we do
very
a,
much.
One question before, I'm sorry, do I redo everything?
nope, just the plans.
Just the plan?
Yes. Yep, and you'll submit that to our office, yep, with copies for the board members and a digital like you did, and we'll distribute it to the board members.
Just the footprint? Is that all you want to see, or you want to see?
I think we should see everything architectural and an updated survey reflecting.
That's going to be the problem.
Yeah, that's-
If your architect can draw a site plan.
If your architect can draw a site plan,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And just, we did uncover, right, a slight discrepancy on the architectural. Your side yard setback is 21.8,
Might-
And on your survey,
23, 9, and 20.
so,
Okay.
I
figure
can-
out
I
which
can-
one is which and get them unified, please.
I can tell you surveys are backed up. I'm doing one myself next week. It's brutal.
Surveyors are nightmare right now,
Yeah.
so.
So he
I
can
won't
do-
hear back from
tell
him.
me
If your architect can do a site plan,
Site plan,
that's
is that what
fine.
you said?
Site plan, and just revise everything
Yes,
to push the
yes.
garage back.
I mean, he already has your architect has submitted a site plan, but have him cross-reference it with the survey and get the dimensions to match.
Perfect.
Will do.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate you taking the time to come in
Thank you so
personally.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Should we do a second call for the application on the county road?
That's right. So let's go back to that case.
30 County Road 39.
There's, Sage is telling me there's nobody on Zoom, and I don't see anybody
Sage,
else
no one,
in the audience.
no one on the Zoom.
And no one's here.
Okay,
not sure what happened here.
so Alex, they have been adjourning this, gosh, for.
I signed on to Zoom, you didn't need to sign off.
No, you're okay.
It has to have been 6 months.
I'd have to double check when they first submitted, but I can tell you it has been some time.
Okay. Should we close the application?
If you recall whether you have sufficient information to make a decision, you can do that.
As I recall, their application was not in the state where we could make a decision.
The other option would be to deny without prejudice, which is to dismiss the application and have them reapply if and when they're ready, if that's what you decide.
I think that's appropriate in this case.
I totally agree. I think that they need to come back when they're ready. And to keep rolling it forward doesn't help them at
Yeah.
all. So I think deny with prejudice and tell them.
Unless you want to give them, since we have a meeting in 2 weeks, another opportunity to, and have that be the last adjournment, and then do that at that point, just accounting for the fact that.
How about we just adjourn without date and set a control date for them to let us know by a certain date, failing which it would then be deemed to be not withdrawn, but
Yeah, perfect.
I forgot what the right word is, but
Denied without
effectively
prejudice.
withdrawn.
Yeah. Okay.
That works.
Okay, then that will be my motion.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
What's the
And
period of
what-
time?
what
Control
is-
date, 60 days?
that's.
Whatever the
30.
April date,
That's-
30 days?
I
Okay.
like that better.
40, you want to meet in the middle and say 45? You decide what's
Okay,
appropriate,
whatever.
Brian.
45 is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I was going to suggest we set it by a hearing date, but that's fine.
It's just to let us know,
Yeah.
and then it will have to be rescheduled, renoticed.
This is bad.
So what was the motion?
Easy.
And I don't get,
Motion was to adjourn without date
Wait.
and provide a control date within 45 days, within which they should advise us whether they intend to
Yeah.
continue this application, upon which the board would then reschedule it with notice required. And if they don't let us know, it would be deemed to be withdrawn.
Okay. And we did the vote on that?
We did the vote
Okay,
on
great.
that.
Who-
Did
who
we
made-
do the vote on that?
On what?
The 45 day?
Do it again, just in
Yeah, you
case.
said aye.
Okay, motion,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thanks. Just wanted to make sure Jackie confirmed that.
Okay.
The only other thing I have on the agenda is some suggested dates. I think the only scheduled dates we have beyond the next meeting of the 27th is one on April 24th. As you know, we schedule applications far out based on newspaper notice and deadlines and things like that. We also have some pending applications we know will be coming to this board, likely a cell tower. So to give applicants some reasonable expectation about when they can be heard, it'd be helpful if we're able to put some more dates on the calendar pending the board's
so you have March
availability.
27 and April 24th.
April
now.
24th, yep, those are the only two, that's as far as the board has set the calendar thus
I
far.
can't do the
Just-
27th,
Wait,
Mr. Chair.
March.
March
27th.
27th.
Okay.
24th, I
Wait
will
a
be
minute.
here in person.
20, just
Here's-
April
here's-
24th, nobody from I can't do it, no one from my office will be able to do it. We have a firm-wide event,
Which day?
April 24.
That's a problem.
Well, we might be able to see if, I don't know if there's any other, either maybe the ARB or the Planning Board Council may be able to step in.
How
if that's
about
appropriate.
how about a Tuesday like tonight, early in the month? How about April 8th?
You have that set. You have April 8th and you have May 13th, so this
do
would be
we
an
have-
add-on between.
We have April 8th.
Do we? Let me just double check the calendar.
Well, we crossed it out
I know,
for some reason.
It's a
We
work,
crossed
it's
out.
down as a work session on the agenda.
oh, I'm sorry, the work session is this setting the calendar. So that's listed because it's a possible date, but I don't think we had a meeting scheduled for that date.
There's no meeting.
I don't think it's on the village website
Okay.
as a meeting date, unless the board decided to schedule one.
This is these are, yeah.
All right, so let's, rather than sit here and keep the people back there and everybody here, we can work out dates
Okay.
separately by email, figure it out, and let Alex know.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, thank you everyone for being here tonight, and that concludes tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.